My brain is a dumpster, and that's why we're here.
Welcome.
No
Here to
bros.
talk about another book.
Before we get started, we'll do a quick check-in. What have you been reading, and what have you really liked and not liked since the last time we met?
I finally finished Darker Shade of Magic,
Mm-hmm.
so that was really good. Yeah, super good. I love E. Schwab. I also finally finished the last 15% of It Happened One Summer. Boo! We read Survive the Night. You did that one too.
Yes.
It was like really fast-paced and fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I read Carrie. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what about you?
Nice. I would say my favorite one since we last met was The Charm Offensive. I loved it. It's kind of like The Bachelor, where the person who's the bachelor falls in love with the producer, and it's like queer romance and lots of like mental health representation. It was so good. I loved it. I didn't love Survive the Night. I know a lot of people in our book club did, but it just wasn't my favorite. I feel like I read a bunch of thrillers that were just like kind of boring. So I read,
fell flat for you.
yeah, like I read The Wife Upstairs, which was like kind of the ending is like really hype, but then leading like the 80% is just kind of like boring. I read 3, which is like the first thriller I ever read in like junior high, and I was obsessed with it in junior high, and I read it again and I was like, oh my gosh, this thriller could have been 200 pages shorter. The concept still holds up. But the actual writing was like so much exposition. I was like,
sucks.
calm down. So yeah, really like Charm Offensive. Really was less invested in thrillers this month, which is weird. I like thrillers, but I feel like I just had a bad run with
I
them.
think they need to be done right.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
We read one.
We read one. This is our book today.
Yeah.
In My Dreams, I Hold the Knife,
Woo.
by Ashley Winstead. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a synopsis? Did you write this? You're
I-
always doing the synopsis, so flop.
Well, okay, my summary is spoiler free. So you can stay until the end of
I know.
this, and then we'll tell you to stop, as usual.
Enjoy these next few moments.
Alright, so
Leave.
So 10 years ago, there were 7 best friends that went to elite Duquette University. They're known as the
East House 7.
East House 7, thank you. They're known as the East House 7. They do everything together. They're kind of like the cool clique at school. Until one of the 7, Heather, gets murdered in her sleep, presumably,
Yeah.
and her murder goes unsolved. For a while, people think it's maybe her boyfriend who is part of the 7, but he is kind of let off because there's not any firm evidence against him. So murder goes unsolved. 10 years later is their 10-year reunion, because that's how time works. Would you believe it?
Can you imagine?
So 10 years later, it's their reunion. The kind of main character, Jessica, she rolls in and she's like, everyone's gonna love me.
Relatable.
They're all going to see that I'm so good and so successful, and that the murder of my best friend is fine. Really.
Yeah.
I'm like, it didn't break me as a person, and I came back stronger. So her whole plan to like come back as the like successful rich lady who survived this horrible thing gets really derailed when her murdered best friend's brother Eric kind of approaches the remaining members of the group of 7 who are at the event and goes like, hey, let's go, I know it's one of you who killed her, and we're gonna find out tonight.
And then the rest of the book is zoom in.
Zoomy.
So fast.
We kind of have a few main characters throughout. So there's Jessica, she's kind of the main character, and then there's, I would say, 7 other main characters. Heather, who dies, which is a main thing.
Yeah, not a spoiler, that happens so early.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah. I think it's even on the back of the book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not a spoiler. But yeah, and then there's a bunch of other characters that they all kind of learn each other's secrets about the time that they were in university that maybe not all of them knew, and things behind each other's backs, and like all sorts of things. It kind of comes out that pretty much all of them would maybe have a motive to kill Heather.
We tend to read thrillers a little differently.
I would say for me, I read it, I'm along for the ride, and then when I finish it, I look back and I say, did that ending make sense with the information I was given? Where you start,
and right away I'm like looking for Easter eggs. Who's the killer here? And like what's the truth? I tend to have like a little bit of a history, like having an idea of what the ending is going to be like, but often like a really good thriller in my mind, even if I know it is coming, I'm like, oh, this is so satisfying the whole way through.
Yeah.
I like annotate. My annotating is like,
you put a tab.
I just put tabs. My yellow tabs here are a line or something that I felt supported my initial
Theory.
theory. Anyway. From this moment on, maybe let's
Spoilers.
say goodbye to those of you who want to read the book and don't want to be spoiled.
But I would say if that's intriguing, read it. It is a really, really enjoyable read. One other thing I wanted to do, I would say that this book has a ton of content warnings. So if you're somebody who needs to look at content warnings, Storygraph is great for having content warnings, and they list like literally everything that's mentioned. But I would say the biggest ones would be like murder, blood, sexual assault,
and addiction and eating disorders.
I was going to say drug use, homophobia, cheating, suicidal ideation.
Yeah. If you're leaving right now, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Mwah. I feel like a good way to maybe start this is to quickly go over the characters because I've written down like each of the characters, why they might have a motive for killing Heather.
Her notes are much more organized than mine. I did actually bring my own today for the first time ever.
Wow, I'm so proud of you.
But mine are trash. So
they were still gonna live very off mine.
I am.
That's okay. I'll allow it. I write notes anyway. So
characters. Let's talk about characters.
Okay.
I think this is a book where the main 7 people are like all really like integral.
So I would say main character Jessica, who most of the book is from Jessica's perspective.
Yeah, it's like first person perspective.
Yeah. So she in university dated Mint, who's part of the group. Her motive for potentially murdering Heather would have been that Heather got a scholarship that she had been like working so hard for, and Heather was kind of a throwaway, like, oh yeah, I guess I applied for that, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I can not that I can totally relate to like psychopathic behavior, but I was like, dang, like that is a great motive.
Part of it comes in like her relationship with her father growing up and the expectation of like going to Harvard but not being able to afford it. So like it's not just like you got a scholarship that I wanted, I'm gonna kill you, but there's like more to it. So that would have been her motive. As we've already established, Jess and Mint are like a couple. They're like kind of the golden couple in university. Yeah. Jess is cheating on Mint with Cooper.
Mint sort of has some like daddy issues.
Literally my write-up, Mint, golden boy, dated Jessica, married Courtney.
Daddy issues.
I literally wrote, he thought she was cheating on him and has daddy issues.
Yeah.
That's my write-up. I would say that he doesn't necessarily have a motive for killing Heather. He was like at a frat party that night. He's like kind of the one that everyone's like, well, it wasn't Mint. Jack, the boyfriend at the time, had been cheating on Heather with one of the other members of the group, and
it turns out that he's bisexual, actually. And so he's like, it's kind of a secret that he's getting on with Frankie, right? Who's like a football player and who is also wrestling with his sexuality. And like there's like obviously some standards there where he's like college level football player trying to get trying to get into the NFL, and
then
so
Heather had information, like I think that day Jack had come clean to her being like, yo, I'm sleeping with Frankie. Heather knew that they were together. There was concerns about Frankie's like football career because she was going to go to like his dad and his coach and all this because he was also using steroids. So she was going to like turn him in. So that's kind of joint Frankie and Jack motive.
That would be their motive for like shutting her up.
Cooper is kind of the bad boy of the group and the love of my life now.
Honestly.
He's
so toxic.
He's the worst. He's so bad.
Oh, but I just...
Give us therapy. Really the main reason that there's a concern that Cooper might be the murderer is that he's also a drug dealer and has been dealing the drug that was found in Heather's system when she was murdered. Caro is Jess's best friend. She also is like so deeply protective of the concept of kind of this East House 7. She has never felt like she belongs anywhere. And so her kind of motive for potentially killing Heather is Caro knows that Heather might be turning in Frankie. She knows that that would like decimate their friend group essentially. And so she's like, if I shut up Heather, then maybe the rest of us can stay together and like we'll just grieve over her together, but like
ultimately like stay a close-knit friend group.
We have Heather's brother Eric, who's kind of this guy just heading this
absolute crazy person.
Eric literally like walks up to them and is like
at the reunion
and he's like, come with me.
Hey guys, I know it's your 10-year reunion, but we should probably pay respects to my dead sister, don't you think?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
We should.
Great! Just follow me on over to this creepy old fort. Here it is, the perfect place to honor my dead sister. Come on in, guys. Looks good to me.
I can understand him being like, let's pay respects to my sister. This would have been her 10-year anniversary
Yes.
too. I get that. I'd be like, yeah, you know,
Yeah,
she was
okay,
such
let's go to her grave.
Let's go to her grave. And then he's like, let's go into this creepy basement so I can interrogate
And
you.
all of them were like,
Sure. It's a little bizarre.
They felt kind of like obligated and awkward.
Yeah. So he's
Feeling obligated and awkward would not make me go into an unsafe
into
basement,
a
though.
dank basement.
I'd be like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And then the final kind of person who's around is Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney wasn't part of the group. She was very heavily kind of rejected from the group in university because she said something kind of mean to Jess and everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, and she
Really
was,
rallied.
she was really friends with Heather.
Yeah.
Like, and that was kind of the tie to the group because
Yeah.
they were in the fancy sorority. And that's another like sort of motive for Jess as well, as Jess is like, I'm in the second best sorority.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, her whole life she's like forgotten about.
And second best.
And
in
second
everything.
best in everything. Courtney ends up with Mint, which is like
Yes.
Jess's boyfriend
Yeah.
at the time. So
Yeah, so just
Courtney is
more-
overall a very unlikable character.
Yeah,
throughout.
and she has this potential, not motive for killing Heather, but the fear that she maybe could have killed Heather by kind of drugging her moderately on the night of her murder to win some stupid sorority crown. She like crushed up these sketchy like Chinese weight loss pills.
Yeah.
In like massive amounts to knock her out. Heather, she's dead. So there's like, yeah, all these people, they all have motives for having potentially killed Heather. I feel like at the beginning of the book, you feel very much like it's just Jess. You just assume
100%,
that
yeah.
it's like an
That was the
unreliable
theory
Well,
that I was supporting
Yeah.
with my yellow tabs. I was like, it's 100%. Like even the
Well-
subtle stuff. And then I was like, then I had enough yellow tabs that I was like, no, this has to be a red herring.
there's too much
There's
leaning
too
towards it.
much.
Something we forgot to mention about Jess actually is that she does not remember a good chunk of the
Oh,
night
yeah,
that
yeah.
Heather dies. She like has it like literally
She's, like,
blacked out. It's
repressed it,
repressed. So she has this like unsettling fear throughout it that she could have killed her.
With my theory being that Jess was the murderer, I don't want to say I was like disappointed as we got closer to the end, but I was really satisfied with the final payoff.
Yes.
I was like, yes, I knew that there was some thread of this. And actually, there's one orange tab in my book that I tabbed as I was reading this, and I was like, I know this is going to be important, and I was right.
What is it?
Earlier on in the book, Amber, the younger sorority girl, gets her sex tape leaked.
Yes.
And like that's Jess's thing,
Yeah.
right?
I think Jess was on the sidelines, but she was like, if it's going to happen.
Right, that's
Yeah.
the line that so she said, the day it leaked, my first thought, I couldn't help it, was that sometimes you really didn't have to lift a finger to get exactly what you wanted. And I was like, that is going to be important later.
Yeah.
I know it. And so I tagged that page as the only orange tab in
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a theme of Jess's life. Like she's
Yeah.
kind of like,
She's a sociopath for sure.
yeah, 100%.
And
That's why when you were like, why didn't you tell me that Jess is exactly me? I was like, you are literally not a sociopath
Oh,
though.
that's nice. There are a lot of areas of the book where I did feel like some kinship with her. Even though
Yeah.
she's definitely like kind of an evil character. And maybe it's just because like I'm gonna be 32 soon. I'm 10 years out of my university experience. And like I also had like, I wouldn't say my university experience was anything like this, but
What?
whoa.
That'd be wild.
Everybody was murdered. No, I'm just
Everyone was sleeping with each other behind each other's backs. And...
You'd be surprised.
Well, yeah, that actually tracks.
But like my high school experience was very much the kind of experience that I would want to come back to as like
be like-
successful. Exactly. I would love to come back to my high school experience and be like, I'm better than you.
Everyone who said anything mean about me can suck my
Trick.
I would say the biggest thing to talk about is just like genuinely the ending.
Yeah.
Because you had all those motives. All
Yes.
those different motives for everyone who could have killed Heather. So kind of like I said, Mint was kind of the one person who didn't really have a motive. But like you said, Mint has big daddy issues.
As the story is kind of like coming to a head, we go back in time and we see Jess's experience
Oh.
with trying to get
The scholarship.
this scholarship. And so she goes to a professor, Garvey?
Yeah, and he's like
Dr.
really
Garvey?
esteemed. It's kind of like a letter from him is like, you're going to get this
And
scholarship.
he actually, there's some parallels between him and like what Jess's dad could have been. He is like an econ majors and he was like an advisor to lots
Like
of
the White
politicians
House,
and stuff.
yeah.
So she goes to to sort of ask for a recommendation from him because she has like been busting her butt. Dr. Garvey is like, yeah, like sure I can. I'm gonna take you
to dinner first.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you out to dinner though. And she's like, he takes her to dinner, and then she's like ready to get the letter from him, and he like rapes her. Like
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah, she's
horrible.
like repeatedly sexually assaulted over a period of time.
Yeah.
So that's also part of her motivation for why she's so pissed and she doesn't even get the scholarship
Yeah.
in the end. A rumor gets out that Jess
Yeah.
is sleeping around with a professor for funsies, pretty much, is what
Yeah.
the rumor is. And Mint, who like has this kind of
cheating issue.
treating.
I mean, who doesn't? But like
Yeah.
he has like
This
an especially
massive-
huge
yeah.
like cheating trauma.
And so he decides he's not gonna be like his dad, who just like, you know,
Folds and
whatever. He's like, I'm gonna show her.
Jess is like, I mean, only sleeping with the professor because she has to.
Yeah, I mean, she's also sleeping with Cooper because
Right, and that's kind of why it's like kind of crazy. It's like Mint is kind of an idiot. Like he doesn't know that she's sleeping with like another one of their friends, like
Yeah.
their close friends.
she and Cooper are like in love. They're both like,
Yeah.
we're both sociopaths. I see you the way that no one else has ever seen you. And they're like, they both kind of feel like they're soulmates, but Jess kind of feels like Mint is the correct person
Yeah,
to
like
be
the
dating.
safer choice and
Yeah.
like the better sort of fit for
For
the
her goals.
lifestyle and like the perception that she
Yeah.
wants to give off to other people.
Heather is asleep in Jess's bed. She looks a bit like Jess, like they're relatively like kind of similar
Same size
build
and
and
build and
whatever.
everything.
And she's like drugged, so she's not really responsive. Mint like goes in and stabs her like 17 times. He's
Then
like,
realizes
he's like,
it's
oh
not.
no, but then he's like, well, no one needs to know that I murdered her because I'm
Yeah.
the golden boy.
It was ultimately like a mistake. Like
Yeah.
he meant to kill Jess.
Yeah, and then he like
Yeah.
goes back to Jess and like kind of plays the part of like the caring boyfriend, so nobody will ever suspect him until he eventually breaks it off to
Yeah, it was
be
wild.
Courtney. Fully an accident that Heather was murdered. We come back to real time. They actually have come to kind of the conclusion that it's Jess. Jess panics because she doesn't remember because
Yeah.
she's like blacked out the whole
Yeah,
night.
she's had this hole in her memory.
Yeah, and so she just like panics and she like bolts.
It was you all along. You killed my sister, didn't you? It was you all along. You ate the last cookie from the cookie jar, didn't you?
The whole time he's like, all along it was you!
And he's like, so you're the murderer then?
It must have been you!
She kind of goes to like her and Cooper's old hiding place where they used to pretty much go and hook up.
Do it.
Yeah. So she goes there. Cooper knows to find her there, and he finds her. Cooper lets her know, like, hey, it actually wasn't you. You were with me.
She also like she remembers that she woke up
Covered in blood.
Like, she has cuts on her hands
And her
also
thighs.
Yeah, and so she's like, okay, I have all this blood on me, and also I was furious at Heather. But
And
there's
I don't
this-
remember
There's this
anything.
like window of time that I don't remember at all. So she also keeps having this recurring vision of like this flash of memory of just like blonde hair, matted blonde hair, blood,
Yeah.
like white sheets or whatever. So she's like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
think I
it's
killed
me.
her.
Yeah. Cooper comes up. He's like, yo, it wasn't you. Like, I was with you. You got the cuts from breaking into the...
At this moment, I was like, I think Cooper's lying. I do think he was trying to protect her at first.
But yeah, so he's like, couldn't have been you. The rest of the group find them, and they're like, oh, okay, well, if it wasn't Jess, who was it?
Mint tells them.
Oh.
Yeah, so that he's kind of backed into a corner, and I believe
Right.
that he just says like it wasn't supposed to be Heather. It's supposed to be you.
Yeah, in a
And
moment of panic.
In a moment of like panic and kind
Yeah.
of passion, like he's obviously like very highly emotional.
He tries to light the tower on fire.
I've seen as a step down for murder.
He then tries to stab Jess. They're like tussling
Yes,
on the floor.
they are tussling.
He's like, I will get you now.
He's like, I wasn't successful before.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill you today.
Eric, in a moment of bravery and whatever, kind of pushes Mint out the window of the tower. He's
just a weird.
He's
like,
making
weird
rash decisions. He pushes Mint out the window, Mint dies. Because that's what happens when you fall out of a tower window.
I think there's like that level of panic that happens in a lot of thriller novels
Yeah.
where the killer is like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
I'm
have
caught.
to kill everyone.
I'm caught, so who cares? I'm
Yeah.
gonna kill everybody. Kamikaze.
Yeah, and then Eric kind of saves her. Jess takes the blame for it.
Which I thought was very interesting because the whole entire time Jess wanted to be like in the spotlight.
Yeah, and then she becomes like a national hero.
The stuff that comes out after that
Yes.
is where I started to be like, I knew it.
Yeah.
There was one, I'm gonna find it. They're piling her into the ambulance. here. I literally shut the book and I screamed. Jack was in the crowd. Now, Jack didn't come with them to the reunion because everybody kind of thought he was the murderer, right? And all these years, Jess was like one of the only ones who believed him. I was like, it's because she knows. She like has been hanging out with him outside of it, and then she's standing at the tower in front of the broken glass and looks down and sees Jack in the crowd. So he like ended up coming after all. So we find out that he'd been working with Eric. Yeah, Jess is like, what? And he's like, I was going to tell you before you left at the bar, I was going to warn you. Eric had been writing me letters for months. We'd come up with a plan. He said I couldn't trust anyone. I decided not to chance it. Some part of me thought it could have been you. Jack had almost warned me, excluded me from the suspect list. Then he thought better of it. I tilted my head back and laughed so loud it stilled the medics. They eyed me warily, but I kept laughing, the sound filling the small space. Jack, I called right before the ambulance doors swung shut. You have good instincts. And I was like, yeah! Jess knew the whole time!
It comes out at the very, very end. That night she had gone back to the apartment.
She goes back to her apartment and she finds Heather. And Heather's still alive.
Yeah. But like, yes, she's like holding on by a thread.
She's been stabbed 17 times.
She's not
so
doing
she's
good.
literally just like laying in bed and she goes like, Jess.
Yeah.
Jess makes the like decision to just like
she's
leave
pretty
her
much
there.
like, that's cool.
She's like, I'll go get help. And then she like gets into the elevator and like
pieces out.
That's where I was like, yes. And they reiterate that line that I tagged.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. Sometimes you really didn't have to lift a finger to get exactly what you wanted. Sometimes all you had to do was sit back and do nothing. It was just that easy. This book is great.
It is so good.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
I personally gave it a 4-star, only because I feel like a little bit, it took me a little bit to get into it.
Yeah.
I think books that have so many characters and so many main characters, I was like, there's a lot of characters, and I think at points I was like, nobody can truly believe that that's like actually the motivation to like literally kill your good friend. And so it's believable for me for like some of them, but not all of them.
Not all of them, for sure. So I thought it was a 5-star read. I really liked it.
Right off
I finished it today. I don't know why I always do this. I leave the book until the day that we're going to film, and I read it
42 seconds before we start the camera.
before we start. I zoomed through it. I thought it was fast-paced. Yeah. It was really like a good, easy read, and it was like tantalizing.
Yeah. I feel like I maybe wasn't as invested in Jess's return to Duquette. And I feel like I was a little lost right up until Jess and Cooper hook up.
Let's take 1 second to talk about that scene. We do not condone cheating.
No.
Holy
usually
crap,
when there's cheating in a book, I'm like, ick.
It's the only pink.
Yeah, the only like spicy.
The only spicy scene, really.
So they're grinding coochies. Kind of making out. They're having a moment where he's kind of like, I see you.
She is dating Mint. Just a small aside, earlier on in the book, Jess is having an upset moment and she has a really nice connection moment with Cooper. And they go back to Cooper's room and they're like talking, and then like Cooper like goes away to grab the root beers and comes back, and like by the time he's back, she's like connected with Mint and like is like making out with Mint, and like that's the beginning of her and Mint's like relationship. And like Cooper literally like he like drops the root beers. He's like surprised because he thought that it was going to be
their moment.
Their moment. The first 86 pages of book like lead up to Cooper pining and like this missed opportunity moment, and there's still this little hint of a spark.
Yeah.
They're
making out. It says, I shivered and he captured my mouth. He was warm and tasted faintly herbal. I'm not an Eagle Scout. I'll do things you hate. Coop, the boy who always said things that were too close to the truth. The one who made me uncomfortable, who looked at me too long and too closely. Why are you telling me this? I'm giving you an out. Coop ran his hands down my body until he reached the place between my legs. He cupped me and I arched into the wall. I've wanted you since the first day I saw you walking to class in your pleated skirt. I spent 3 years thinking about this. 3 years not allowed to touch you or breathe a word. I'm telling you up front I need more. I need you over and over, so this is your out. Take it, otherwise you're mine, the way it should have been. And like, it's not a spicy book, but I literally at that moment I was like, alright, let's go. And they have an ongoing thing kind of for like a long time.
Yeah.
He also breaks into the professor's house and is like,
does.
he like
He
writes
writes-
like rapist around his walls and
like
stuff.
breaks like
Everything.
It was like $100,000 worth of damage.
Yeah.
I'm like such a sucker for that trope where a guy is like, you hurt her, I kill you.
Yeah.
These are things that like you appreciate
In a book.
appreciate in a book. Like
Yeah.
you're like, this is like a very toxic behavior in real life.
Yeah.
It's like you would never be like drawn to like really erratic, passionate but violent behavior in real
Yeah.
life, but like, oh, Coop.
Cooper. Yeah. I feel like that was the moment where I was like, okay, now I'm gripped, and then I stayed gripped. I would happily give it like a 4.5, so we can round up. Songs.
Okay, I picked a song that's more just like the vibe. I will do my very best in the future to not just pick a Panic at the Disco song for every single,
You'll choose Panic at the Disco, and I'll choose Taylor Swift.
every time, but I picked Golden Days. There's a line in the chorus that's, we'll stay drunk, we'll stay tan, let the love remain, and I swear that I'll always paint you golden days. So the general vibe of it is very much like, almost like fairy tale, like time of their life for all of them, even though like, objectively, a lot
Terrible.
of like, toxic things happen.
So I also did a song that is a bit more on the general vibe, the vibe of more the ending, when they're all panicky, they all think it's each other, the thing's on fire and people are getting stabbed. So I went with Game of Survival by Ruel.
Oh, cool.
So the lyric is, who's in the shadows, who's ready to play, are we the hunters or are we the prey? There's no surrender, there's no escape, this is a wild game of survival.
Damn, that's awesome. That's a really good pick.
Yeah, so that's
I
my
was
choice.
winning the song choices.
You said you'd get me this time. Oh, we have to rate it. We're giving it 5 stars. I guess we said
5
that.
stars.
But 5 stars. It is the Six of Crows bathroom scene. Actually, it is now the Cooper love confession.
Honestly,
scene.
that is like that. It's good.
It's good.
It's really good. And if you know the like, we read it to you because we're like your loving parent before bed. But if you read it, even context will make that scene nicer for you.
Yeah.
It's like so good. That's the book.
That's it.
I guess we should go over
Oh,
next to read too. My next to read for thrillers, I want to read Wrong Place, Wrong Time. And also House Across the Lake. It's another Riley Sager one. Because I liked Survive the Night, I have a feeling that one will also be pretty readable. It's also super popular. So
Nice.
those are my next like thrillers on the list. I'm also reading Coraline. And I'm going to read Cruel Prince finally, which you have linked to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, what about you?
I am currently reading Gathering of Shadows so that I can finally give it back to you because you lent it to me like 5 months ago. So I'm reading that. I'm finishing a series of unfortunate events. Probably by the time this is out, I'll be done all of them. And then I'm finally gonna do it. I'm finally gonna start ACOTAR.
Yay! I've read the first ACOTAR novel,
Yeah.
so I'm going to probably join you for the second one.
Yeah, I've never read
So-
any Sarah J. Maas, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, can't say I love how much she uses the word ribbons, but other than that, I liked it. I like fairies, so stay tuned for October.
Yes.
We're gonna do some spooky stuff.
Spooky, spooky.
Maybe
I have-
both of us hold a pumpkin.
I have 40 pumpkins. In
Can
there.
they would be rotten by now.
No, not by October.
Oh, in your garden.
But yeah, we're gonna do probably a fun little spooky October situation.
I'm gonna wear a bat on my face. Can we dress up?
Where are you gonna get a bat?
I don't know.
Like, subscribe,
That's
comment.
it, please.
Tell us thrillers. We've both been reading a lot of thrillers lately. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.
Those are my judgy eyes.